Evening and welcome to our Ask the Farmer Q&A session for the first one for this February. I'm Bridget Barry from Farming for Nature, and this series is run by Farming for Nature. Farming for Nature was set up to encourage and inspire farmers that farm or wish to farm more with nature in mind. And one of the ways we do this is each year we find exemplary farmers that are working alongside nature, and they are shortlisted through a nomination process and they become ambassadors. And this Q&A series is a really nice way of talking to the ambassadors and finding out more about their tried and tested methods, and for allowing you to also ask them some questions. So what we're going to do tonight is I'll kickstart the evening and ask our guest speaker a few questions, and then I encourage you to write into your chat box on your banner any questions that you have for our speaker, and I'll facilitate them later on in the hour. So if you have to sign out anytime tonight, or you miss any of this session or any of our previous sessions, they're all up on our YouTube channel, and this one will be up on our YouTube channel within the next 24 hours. So feel free to watch it or share it or forward it on to anyone that you think might be interested. So on to tonight's event. We are delighted to have dairy farmer Thomas Stack join us from County Limerick. Thomas runs 130 acres with about 60 milkers on it. Thomas, welcome, and thank you for joining me this evening. You just have to unmute yourself there.
Thank you, Bridget.
Thomas, listen, it's great to profile a farm like yours, a dairy farm like yours, which has quite an unusual kind of U-turn that you've done in terms of inputs and the journey that you've taken. I'm not going to lie, I'm very much a layman when it comes to Korean natural farming, but I'm really looking forward to what you have to tell us tonight. But before we get into any of that, you might just describe for any of us that haven't seen your farm, what your farm looks like and what farming system you have.
Yeah, I have, it's an organic dairy farm. It's kind of hard. It's 130 acres. I own 80 and rent 50. It's all grassland. Basically, I'm grass-fed system. So yeah, it's rotational grazing. That's what I do. I use natural farming to attend to my microbial life in the soil and to grow my grass, basically. That's it. All I do is just produce milk. Yeah.
Great. You might just tell us about your own journey into agriculture and this farm.
Yeah, I took over the farm in 2012, and actually I did my ag year in 97, and I was just like really confused on what they were kind of saying to us. You know, about growing maize and all this, and I was just thinking, I was kind of lost in a way. Went away, did my own thing, and came back. I took over the farm in 2012, and I was like just trying to get going. My dad kind of did his best, but you know, he was still at the same 50 cows, and I thought I needed to expand, and I did, and I went to 70 cows, and basically I could see the way things are going. I was a lot of costs and a lot of inputs and a lot of stress, and I just thought to myself, there must be another way. I think 18 was the year that really hit home for me with the drought that year, and basically I just thought to myself, there must be another way, in the way of that if I could produce less and get paid more for it, and to cut down my costs. So that's what I looked into. I was advised go to Biofarm in 18, and that's where it kind of blew me away on the situation of Ireland and what the farming system was and how it was working, and really learned a lot there. Actually was kind of shocked in a way, but because as a farmer you're very I suppose you're skeptical of changing the way everyone else is doing it, so this is the way you have to do it. And there's pressure as well, because I suppose you as a young farmer, you're trying to keep up, or keep going. And the more I looked at it, the more I said, maybe it's the other way, really, like, but in Biofarm, there were some great speakers, and one of them was Dan Kittredge, and he just said, he gave a great speech, and he just said at the end, he said, there's two things: you could start with seawater and create natural farming. That's a whole different ballgame. And basically, that's all I took.
That was the ball game that you were.
But before that, then I was like, before I went there was a few hairy moments in the way of that. I remember we used to buy organic milk. I used to even drink my own milk, like, because I kind of knew what I was at, and I used to buy it, and it was like, what are you doing, Tom? Like, I went to bed and grew conscious, I suppose. And there was these little things happening. But the summer of 18 really showed me that you are a lunatic, like what I was at, because basically I was spreading fertilizer in the evenings and spraying water all night on it, and I had maybe 9 acres burnt off, and I was looking at it going, this won't be done, like, because the drought wasn't, the drought was going on and on and on. And then fodder and feed and everything. And I said, there must be another way. And basically, Biofarm changed my thinking, really. And so after that, I went home, and I remember Nikki, my wife, saying, she said, you might learn something now going to Biofarm. And Jesus, I came in the door and she goes, Tom, sit down, like, she goes, my head was going to, yeah.
Or
my head was going, oh, stop. I was wrecked. I remember stopping in halfway down the road and looking out. And this is a fact. Looking out over, would see these massive, all the ditches taken away. Like, really, like nature is really powerful. But the way people are, to whatever happens, like, we take away ditches and we make bigger lands, big, really unnatural. And I think greed kills nature in a way, but we could go many ways. But I went home and I told her what I was to do, and lucky enough, she understood. She could see the pressure I was under. She could see the stress I was under with, expanding my farm, putting money back in, and she said, "Look, Tom, do whatever you think is go with your gut, really." And I did. I spent about 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks online following Korean natural farming, Dan Kittredge. I don't know. I'm lucky she's actually still with me, because I was absolutely, because in that system, your head is telling you, like, how is my grass going to grow, like, and basically I actually took everything off a cliff, because I said, look, I'm going to go organic as well, not thinking, just said, that's it, I'm going organic, like, not thinking of the financial side of it. But yeah, and I was in panic of how am I going to get my grass growing, like, and with all the research, then I realized that, it's biology, it's the soil. And I remember the day after, I got a shovel and I went around my farm as we were told, and see what's going on, like. And I've actually photos, I've got all documentation from the first day I went out with a shovel to actually now. So for anyone, the proof is in my pictures and my videos and stuff like that. But I found about 6 worms in my whole farm, and it was really clay, it was lifeless, really, like, and it put me back, because you're in this journey on your own, really, Bridget, and you're thinking, you're always questioning yourself. So I said, right, I have to do this. But I just started to follow Chris and got in contact with him, and basically Chris Trump, yeah.
Chris Trump,
but I was Chris Trump, but I was following a guy called Drake in Hawaii, and even at that in 18. I started just using, like, simple products like a lab. What he was showing online was that, okay, basically you needed a bug, you needed food for the bug, and you needed some minerals and nutrients. So that would be for me through Chris, and he's, online was a lab, lactobacillus is a probiotic, and an FPJ would be fruit plant juice of all, whatever weeds are growing in your farm, or and I just can write nettle stalks, take them, ferment them, do the process. And that's what I was doing for maybe half of 18, and I could see a response. And then you'd hear the people go, oh, you've still nitrogen in your ground, blah, 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 blah. No, I could see the response and I could see my cattle changing, you know, but then we decided, so basically at
And were
that
you
time
spraying this on the land, or how were you?
Oh yes, so basically Mickey Mouse, thinking for myself, I used to get a sock and I used to collect soil from the ditches. I tried to do, I did about 42 or 3 collections, but all my collections were wrong because basically, this is going down, I'll explain more later, but basically I was doing this, putting it into my sprayer and spraying it out in the land after the cows leaving the paddock. And I was doing this for half the year, and then I realized this works, yeah. And then I said I needed to do something about it. And so we sat down and we thought, and I was in transition in organic at the time, and money was cut tight, like, and I decided back then that I was going to go grass fed, didn't care, you know, that was it. There was no more feeding, because I looked at my bills and I was thinking, right, there's 5 families living off me and I'm barely surviving. You know, I'm breaking even every year. And I was thinking, some things have to go, like, you know. And the more reading I was doing with the biology of the soil, you know, once it gets going, it doesn't stop. You're going in the right direction. I was going the wrong direction, but in the system of farming that was on. But I sold my feeders and I sold my automatic feeders in the parlor, and I just got up the money. I went to Connecticut. He actually got back to me and he says, Tom, save your money, don't come to Nevada or Idaho, where he's from. And he said, look, I'll be going to Connecticut. He said, it's halfway for you. He says, I'll do a class there. And I did, and I went. And the first time I met him, I said, you know, it's funny, there's a whole different, he's an amazing guy, actually, because when he talks, you listen in a way, because his energy, but the way he teaches and the way he did it for me in that week. But basically, Bridget, going back, I could not get the rice, you know, the cooking of the rice to collect the microorganisms. We can go back on that afterwards. I couldn't get it to the right cooking stage. So basically, in natural farming, it's your taste and your smell. The minute he cooked the rice for us in the class, like, he passes around, you taste the rice, and you have that for the rest of your life. You need nothing else. Like, so you know what way it has to be cooked for the microbes to take it. But that.
And does he give you the microbes, or with the microbes from your farm, from the kind of the nettles and the compost juice? And
so basically, the FPJ. So it's the microorganisms, right? So basically, all our farmland in Ireland, we could say, right, in my opinion, is barren. It's lacking the diversification of microorganisms. So basically, in layman's terms, I go to a healthy place. So to collect my microbes, I get a box of rice and I put it out in a place under an old oak tree that hasn't been, you know,
just any rice.
So any rice,
special
any
rice,
rice in it,
okay,
doesn't matter. It has
just
white rice anyway, yeah.
Okay.
And basically, I collect, and I do a collection over 5 days. I go to untouched places, where, you know, away from salt fertilizer, you know, clean, healthy, you know, forest floor, really, like, you know, old growth forests, or, you know, and I do my collection. I'd bring it back, and basically, I would do the IMO process, of which we can get into, is that I bring home that collection, and it's weight per weight, and you go. What you do is you freeze that collection of microbes in time with sugar, and sugar, what it does is it stops the microbes of multiplying. It stops their water molecules from multiplying, so they stay in that biofreeze, we'll say, for you've 1,000 years in a jar then. So basically, you have 1,000 years in your shelf, right? And all I used to do at that time was get a spoon of this into a sock, and I used to aerate it for 36 hours, right? And I spray it out in the land every 36 hours with different inputs. But what's wrong is that I'm bringing all these, right, and I'm putting them back in my land, okay? But the steps of IMO is like at IMO2, which is it's in the jar, and it's mixed with the sugar to stop it, going funky. You have that collection of 1,000 years in a jar. And then basically where you're trained, like everyone can do that for a start. Everyone can do that. And where it really kicks in is where you go from IMO2 to IMO5. But IMO2 is that to go to IMO3, basically for layman's, you give them a place to live and something to eat.
Okay, so IMO1, you've collected it, you've got your mother, your starter.
Yeah.
IMO2
is you mix it with brown sugar to give it shelf life, right? Because basically the sugar puts them to sleep, really. So you've 1,000 years of microbes asleep in your shelf, in your farm, okay? And then basically IMO3, which I did in the course, which I didn't try at home, and I did IMO4 and 5, but IMO3 is where you give it something to eat, basically, like rolled oats, and somewhere to live would be wood chip. And basically you just put it in a compost for over 5 days, keep the temperature down. You add in your microbes that you've collected into water, and you just make a compost over 5 days, keep it under temperature. And when that dies off, then you have IMO3, okay? But the key of natural farming is the next step at IMO4 is that you mix your own soil. So what happens here then is, Bridget, is that you're bringing your biology, if you have any, or that scale, you bring it and you mix it to your IMO3, and you let the 1,000 years of microbes actually mingle and have a party with yours. Okay, so when you spray that out in your land, they're not in shock. They have related with each other, they've mingled, had parties, blah blah blah, and basically you're bringing them from babies to carpenters, joiners, electricians. That's the way I can say it. And the beauty of natural farming is that
quantities.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're kind of spraying fields, I see pictures of you with jars this size, but then you talk about spraying fields. I mean, how does it go from here to here?
So hold your fist out, right? So you hold your fist. So IMO3 or at IMO4, where you've after mixing your own soil with this, right? So basically, I made 2 wheelbarrows last year, and I've still a wheelbarrow left of IMO4. So that did my farm 130 acres. So a fist does 9 acres with different inputs into that, aerated for 36 hours. Okay. No, it's kind of hard to explain it until you see it. And I know with farmers that come to me, like they're in shock, but basically that is the beauty of natural farming, and all the inputs can be made inside your own gate. But at IMO5, you mix a high nitrogen source like cow dung or whatever. And basically, when you do that after IMO4, but it's the same process. At 3 to 4, you mix your soil and you do the compost for 5 days as again, okay, and keep it under temperature, let it die off. And IMO5, then you just make a high rich nitrogen source. And you could spread that out in your ground in October and come back and plant anything you want and leave it alone. It will be perfect. It will grow. You'll have no pests, no fung. There'll be nothing there to damage it because you'll have bulletproof soil. I actually did a trial on spuds this year, and they were just amazing. But basically, that's it. I brood up every 36 hours I go. I follow my cows. And different times of the year. Then, Bridget, I add different, we'll say, calcium phosphate, calcium, FFAs and nitrogen. There's different inputs for different times of the year. But the beauty of natural farming is that you're in control, and basically.
And are those inputs for the microbes, or just the soil needs that extra boost?
The soil, you see, basically when you aerate them, the microbes, what's the word? They do their job. They mineralize everything. They mix everything up so it's ready to go on your soil. Because at IMO4, they've been, your soil has been mixed with the microbe. So basically, I take a fist of IMO4, I put it in a sock, I put it into my sprayer with maybe 1,000 liters of water, maybe with different inputs like humic acid. There's a liquid IMO is what I make, really, a liquid IMO. And basically that's aerated over 36 hours and spread out in my land. It's not rocket science. The beauty of natural farming is you're in nature. You see, you're always trained to see what grows faster, what's greener. If it grows so fast overnight, so what's in that plant? Like, what can I do for my farm? In the fermentation thing is, when it's fermentation, it's healthy. So basically, everything that I make for my farm, I can give it to my kids. I give it to my cows. I give it to my kids. And that's not madness, because everything is clean. And in natural farming, I believe, in my opinion, that I've way more nutritious grass, nutritious milk, healthier animals, basically. Because basically, I stopped all when I made that change in 18. I stopped, basically trying my best to stop antibiotics, stop using them. I trained in homeopathy. And so everything is clean. So when the system is clean, there's nothing, they're bulletproof. Yes, the first lot of the cows that were coming from conventional, the ones that couldn't survive without antibiotics, I had to calve them down and get rid of them. And it's hard. It's very hard what I did, but the joy is now, because their calves are coming in this year to calve down. So the proof is in the pudding, really, Bridget. And yes, I treat my kids. My soil, and my cows. Basically, I'm giving my cows at the moment calcium phosphate because pregnancy.
You're actually giving it to them
yes.
in their kind of silage, or because they're grass.
No, through their water, through the water system.
Oh yeah, okay.
So all the yeah. Wait on a second. So all the inputs are soil ready. So your calcium is goes straight into your soil. We use sugar and apple cider vinegar, and that balances, I suppose. It buffers, so it goes into your soil, and it's not shocking your soil. Really, it's pure calcium. There's a bit of chemistry in it. It's simple things. We use apple cider vinegar to bring the calcium out of the eggshell and the phosphate out of the bone. But things are biochar. It's a if you're connected, it's amazing. It's amazing what you can do and what you can make. It's all about. I believe your farm is yours, and if you can keep things to, I think, I suppose, yeah. I don't know.
No, like you say, you're kind of guiding your own journey, sort of thing.
It's yeah.
Tom, so just so I'm clear on a few things, obviously you sold a lot of your original infrastructure when you're a conventional farmer.
Yeah.
Apart from a few jars, you talk about your lab, but I mean, your lab is, there's no special equipment. Is there any special equipment?
There's none.
No, just
your
a
hands.
spade.
No, basically, all I use is a machete to cut my docks, and basically I do my FPJs on the full moon, because in natural farming on the full moon, they believe that Master Joe believes that, he always says that you pick on the full moon because the water table is higher and all the nutrients are in the leaves at night time. So I go to 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. You think you're mad, but once you're in it, it's amazing. Yeah.
Well, I think anyone that does biodynamics would agree that you see the results.
Yeah. And I kind of and then making FPJs is the most important, because I use it a lot. So last year I bought myself a mixer. So before I used to mix it with my hands, the leaves with the sugars, because when you ferment, you have to mix the sugar into the leaves. So what the sugar does, it's osmotic pressure. It draws the nutrients out of the dock or the nettle or the whatever you want to ferment, felistrum or whatever. And basically, lost my train of thought. Basically, so I was doing it with my hands all the time, and I wasn't making enough. So now I said, right, we'll have to up it, because at the scale I'm doing it at, you have to up to make things easier for you. So I bought a mixer, like a cement mixer, and I just put 5 kgs of docks in there and 5 kgs of sugar, and mix it up, come back maybe 3 minutes later, put them into my tubs and let them ferment for 5 days. And then you have an FPJ. Then like a rocket stove for my biochar, for my water, or my calcium phosphate, and my calcium for the eggshells, for the process. So yeah, simple things, but I suppose you probably need maybe 3 liter jars, glass jars, a good knife, and you need sugar. And I use gem sugar. I use organic brown sugar for my fermentations, and I use apple cider vinegar, High Bank Apple Farm in Kilkenny. I get their organic, and that's crazy stuff. The mother is amazing in that. But yeah, that's basically the most inputs really. Seawater as well. I use. Well, I don't know, but I used to use a lot of seawater. Yeah.
So you're you're kind of, unfortunately, you're not right on the coast either, so it's probably not as easy.
No.
You mentioned earlier, okay, you originally looked at your soil. You had like 6 worms originally. You're building the soil the whole time. Are you doing soil tests now? Are you kind of giving yourself a little annual baseline to see how it's improving or anything, or is it just like you can just see your animals are happier, you feel more resilient against drought if it comes again?
Oh yeah, big time. With the first question, I did an Albrecht soil test after the first year, and I said it to Chris, and you laugh, nobody says, stop wasting your money, Tom, and I don't know what it cost me. It was a 550, and it's mad. That's like, I just leave. Don't break the mycelium. Don't break, if it's down there, don't be digging it up. Don't, it's working because I can see my cows, my cows leave the parlour. They don't get grain. They haven't got grains, they leave the parlour, they eat for 15 minutes and they all sit down together. It's, so I don't, and if you want a soil test, you can, but there's no point what I do because I can see it.
It's your farm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then the other question I was wondering, Thomas, like, if you don't mind me asking this, you obviously decreased your inputs. This is one of your only inputs apart from even your extractions for your calcium stuff. You were mentioning you have 5 mouths to feel. Is it economically worth it? Are you finding like your stocking rates is 60 to 130 acres? So
1.6.
Yeah, okay. So I mean,
is it worth it?
Is it worth it? Is it worth it?
Lads, anytime. Look, in the transition, it was hard because I'm at the cutting edge in the way of that. There's no one else doing this, so it is worth it now. This is my year in the way of, I'm signed up to grass-fed milk with Clinisk. My inputs are very, very low. And basically, then people will say, oh, how many litres? That's the wrong question you're asking me. Basically, I want a cow that survives for 10, 15 years. She'll produce as many litres as I want, and I'll get paid for my litres. Yes, it is. Look, the stress, everyone has their own way of doing things, but I believe that I want time for my family, and I don't think in 5 years, I'm thinking in 25 years, I want to leave, have a farm that's bulletproof, and yes, it's been hard. I will give you that, but I'm determined to make this. It's I find it very, very rewarding what I'm doing, and yes, it's financially good. But I've another step in. I've started a no smell dairy, and it's like, I suppose basically that is like for a forest floor for my cows. And
did you say a no smell dairy?
Dairy, yeah.
Okay.
So basically, so they do it with pigs and chickens in natural farming, and that's my next adventure, and I'm trying to finance that as well. So there's a lot going on, Bridget, but that's my next one, and Chris is going to help me this year with that. So yeah, it's happy days.
So we're going to move to the floor now in a sec. I have to commend you. You're obviously a maverick in your own right, and then I'm sure you have many neighbours looking over, going, "What's he up to? What's he up to now?" But also, the proof is in the pudding. You know, your cattle are happy, and also you've kind of created a nicer place to live, and that's important as well. Just one last thing. You mentioned to me before that Chris Trump is coming over to your farm, because I know the questions will come in about this. He's coming over to your farm on the 21st to 27th of June, and registration for this will be open next week on Chris's website, and he'll be doing a week-long workshop on your farm. Obviously, you know, there's a limit to numbers, so it's first come, first served, I assume.
Absolutely. I was doing my notes on today, and just by chance he rang me and he says, "Tom, let's do this." And I said, you know, great timing, Chris, basically. But
no pressure.
No pressure. Yeah. So we it's the 27th to the 1st of July. It'll be the exact same course I did. I'll be there, and I'd say he'll bring another sidesmith from America. And it'll be 5-day intensive with a free day on the Saturday. It's look, I'd advise it, but sure, you know, as I always say, I'm not selling you anything. I'm just telling you what I do, and basically the only way you know is that you come, you visit, and you look, and that's it. You know, proof is in the pudding.
Yeah. No, I like it. Are there many? Have you found along the journey many risks to your, or?
I think the way I did it, I walked it all off a cliff. If I was to do it again, would I change anything? I probably would go at a slower pace than like cutting out everything, you know. But I felt that I just felt so overwhelmed on what I had to do. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't change. I don't think I'd change my mind now. But if for someone that was coming in from, you know, conventional side, I would wean off stuff and introduce natural farming. But basically, with natural farming, everything is clean there. So there's no pathogen. You know, there's nothing dodgy there. But when you're mixing, in my opinion, when you're mixing the conventional side with that and making your IMOs, I believe you'd really want to be looking at your brews. You know, they could go funky. That's my opinion. So, financial, that's one way, but slowly do it. If you're in that position that you're financially okay as well, you know, I would definitely do it. No, I can't. Basically, I'm a farmer at the end of the day. I took this chance. It's working. I don't have all the answers to every question. I know what I do, like why fix it if it's not broken. So I was told what to do. And I'll never forget him. I actually took over soil. I took water, soil, and my apple cider vinegar to the class. And he said, "I heard you brought your soil. I want to see it." Like, and he could not get over our soil. He could not get over how good it was. And I said, "Well, you lunatic!" Like, you know, I said, I was convinced, you know, intensive dairy. He said, "Tom, stop." He said. So he looked at it under a microscope, and I was behind him. And I said, "What's he going to say to me here?" Like, you know. And he turned around, he said, 3 years. I said, "What's wrong with you?" He said, 3 years. He said, "You'll never have to touch your farm again." So I'm 3 years in. And basically he said, "You may have to go once a month with a maintenance spray." And I was going, "You are a lunatic." But I can see it now. And that's why he's coming this year, because I'll have my 3 years done, basically. So look, it's like, nature is everywhere, and I thank you for what you do, because all we have to do is use it and understand it and look at it a lot, you know, from the doctrinated way of we think as farmers. We have to try and shift, you know, going forward. We have to look. Nature tells us so much, like, but you have to be open to it as well.
Yeah, it's hard
and maybe mate.
Yeah. But it's hard to kind of keep out some of the noise as well from big industry. Yeah. Okay, we'll just move over to the floor now. So Claire Lyons asks, sorry if it's a basic question, but how do you aerate? Is it like a pump?
Oh, it's I actually bought a fish tank pump my first time, and now it's a 150 aerator pump. I think they use them for biocycles. So basically, all it does is it's an aerator that goes into the bottom of the tank and it shoots out bubbles. So it's bubbling for 36 hours. You're aerating your tank, and then they multiply basically. Yeah.
And
so
yeah. Sorry, second part to that question: where do you source the nitrogen and calcium phosphate, or where does it come from? Or sorry if it's a basic question, she says.
No. Brilliant. Calcium phosphate is what we do with the calcium phosphate. So quick and simple. So calcium phosphate is we use bone. So go to your butcher, get some bones, make some broth, drink the broth, throw the bones out, and make sure that they're really, really white and all the grizzle and I won't say shite, but all that stuff, bone marrow is gone off them. And it you could boil it twice or three times, let it dry, and then we use a process called biochar, and basically you cook it without oxygen until it's black through and through, and it'll break like absolute glass, and then you look at it and make sure it's black all the way through. It has to be finished properly, and then you put it in apple cider vinegar 1:10 apple cider vinegar, and what happens there is that you change the structure of your bone, and basically the apple cider vinegar, it's a chemical reaction, draws the phosphate out of the bone, and then you have actually pure phosphate. So basically I'm putting it's so much per brew, and maybe per 1,000 liters, right? But basically that's it, and the cows are getting maybe 20 mil less a day through drip feed through their water. So that's calcium phosphate. Yeah, it's you just everything you need is inside your own door.
It's interesting. Sinead Moran, hi Tom. For the IMO3, you mentioned oats and wood chip. Do you mix them in at equal amounts? Do you make the IMO on soil undercover? And what's the ratio do you use to put IMO4 out in the land? So oats and wood chip, do you mix them at equal amounts?
60-40. Basically, I do it on soil and I cover it. I'm going to start doing it when the weather, I usually do it in March. If you get a window of opportunity, you do it whenever. Basically, 60-40 rolled oats and wood chip. And I think it's watered in, and it's such a percentage of your, there's a recipe for what to put on your IMO3 to get your microbes. So you have your microbes in your bucket, in your water. You have, I suppose, apple cider vinegar, OHN, and FPJ. Stir it in, put it on your heap, and away you go. And you just do the process, but make sure you keep it under 50 degrees. That's that. What's the second question?
Oh yeah, sorry. Do you make IMO on soil undercover, and what's the ratio do you use to put IMO5 out in the land?
IMO5, I think, I'm not sure. I don't bring it to IMO5, but I'd say maybe maybe a ton to the acre, less, maybe 3/4 of a ton to the acre. But if you bring it to IMO5, you don't have to touch that anymore. Forget about it. Yeah. But basically, in a scale system like dairy and what I do, the liquid IMO that Chris made, because with his farm, he had 800 acres of macadamia nut, and he had to bring this, wheelbarrow system farming to 800 acres. So he made up the convention of, a liquid IMO, and that's the best way to go if you want to go with that.
Okay. Talia Huff, have you had any problems with flukes since you started this?
I don't think so. No.
Not as far as you know. Caroline says the Irish Wildlife Trust are having a webinar tonight on rewilding. If anyone wants to have a look, it's on their site afterwards. And
sound.
Are there any biodynamic calendars for Ireland? I don't know if you'd know that, because I don't think you're biodynamic.
I do follow the calendar. I do follow the cycles. Yeah. So I kind of mix. There is, yeah. You can
people can Google it, yeah.
Yes.
Karen Clyson says, what is FBJ?
Fruit plant. It's a fruit plant juice. So a fruit plant juice is a dock, felistrum, any sort of high aggressive weed on your farm. It's rich. enzyme drink for your soil. Basically, it's fermented over 5 days, weight per sugar. So I know you think I'm mad, but as I said before, you know, if you have to pick 5 kgs of ducks, you are a lunatic. You know, and you go for the shooting bud, the top of the leaf, you know, or I take everything now, you know, and just mix it. Yeah, it's one of the inputs that I use a lot.
Okay, Mary Buttimer says, do you feed them anything at all in the parlour?
Not a rasher.
Not a rasher, okay.
And always the question comes in, oh, how do they go into the parlour? They walk. You know, when people hear that you don't feed, they go, what?
Dan McCarthy says you're a saint. Lovely to hear of someone natural farming. Well done. So Claire Land says, have you seen any changes to hedgerows or other part of the farming with kind of low grazing animals, or do you use these treatments on veg crops or fruit trees as well?
You can use them on everything, even planting trees. There's a method, natural farming, that I won't probably get into it, but there's Master Joe has it set out that even for planting trees, feeding trees, it works the same, because it's all the same. You know, in what happens in natural farming is that there's different times of year that you go with a different. Say if you have say or peppers or tomatoes, so basically you follow the nutrient cycle, you follow the growing season as well. So you go to spray at the first, you go to spray at the middle, and then when it's changing from flower to fruit, there's a spray for that, right? And he's all this set up. It's I'm not going to go through it now, but there's different sprays for different times of the year on fruit. But I would say, in my opinion, I would put down IMO 5 in October. Whatever you want to plant for the following year, put it down on the soil in October and forget about it. Just plant straight into it. You will have no bugs, no pests, no nothing. I did a trial with the spuds last year with a liquid IMO. I got no blight. I got nothing. They were perfect.
Claire Fagan is actually like leading on, because there's so many questions, I'd say. Do you recommend any books or YouTube channels to learn more?
Yeah.
Does Chris Trump have any, or
he's a load online. He's a load on YouTube. Chris has that. Drake has them. You
Drake,
can follow
surname
Drake. But I think yeah, you can follow Chris. I would follow Chris, but that's I'm kind of biased that way. There's a Wendy Corborg. There's a lot of people out there, you know, vegetables, you know, different whatever they grow. Books, they're very hard to get, actually. There's if you look up Hawaiian, what's it called? Global show in Hawaii. I don't know. I have it here, but
don't worry, people can Google it anyway.
I'll tell you. There's a book called Show's Global Natural Farming. It's the author is Rohini.
Put it up against the screen. Just put it against make it your life easier. Yeah. Okay, ROHINI REDDY. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Rohini.
That's that book. I don't think you can get it, and you'll have to print it out, I'd say. Basically, I got that off a friend in where was it? I don't know. She did a course in Texas, but she tell her story. She was a melon farmer in Texas, and that's what she's doing now, growing her melons. So,
talking of friends from your course, Kobe Guy is here tonight, and he says, I still have some of that soil from class, my wee bit of Ireland. So that's your set up soil tourism.
Yeah, he's one of he was the sidesmith on my course. Yeah, good guy. I think he's after putting up something there. He shared something you can share with whoever wants to find out about it.
Yeah. So do the treatments change depending on the sward mix the animals are grazing on? Claire Lyons asks.
Say that again, Bridget.
So depending what the animals are grazing on, do the treatments change depending on the mix of sward? Or
No, I don't change. I just leave it as it is.
Nature
but basically, if I go with my nitrogen, my FFA, So we make nitrogen from amino acids. So it's fish, half sugar, fermented for maybe 6-7 months with a small bit of IMO. And that's mine. I would go in the middle of the year just to enrich my grass, or I'd use my lab. I put more lab in my sprayer, in my liquid IMO brew. And that kind of it just makes your grass, it's a different color. That's one thing that you'll see past my farm. It's a different green, if that makes sense. And it's probiotic for the soil and for human gut as well. So, yeah.
That's nice. Sinead says, do you spray IMO every 36 hours during the full season?
Absolutely.
Okay, books and resources, yeah, you've covered that. Fruit and horticulture, you've covered. Any book more suited to our climate? Keith Ranello says.
You have to climate. You have to look at it as that. If we get 3 weeks of, if we get 3 weeks of drought, if we get 3 weeks without rain, we're in a drought. Okay. And this is what people have to start thinking. And if we get 3 weeks of rain, it's like Noah's Ark, like it's washout, and people have to start thinking, what's that all about? So basically, there's no biology in the soil to hold the water, or the root. Like I'm a farmer, but basically, this is the way I'm thinking, is that that's where we have to go down, and everything that's washed off the land is gone down a river, so that's all your nutrients gone. So yeah, it's the wrong question to be asking, I think.
Kevin O'Hanlon says, for someone in conversion to organics and new to Korean natural farming, where is the best place to start, do you think?
I would start looking at how to make inputs. I would try and when you're looking at this is what I see as well through bio, or the conference. There's people standing up there, but they're telling you everything what to do, but you have to kind of sit down and break it down for what you have to do for your farm. So the only way you do this is that you sit down at home and you look at the Chris Trump lab making, and he'll explain how to make it, and you'll get better at making it, and the more you get better. And basically you look at all these, and then if you want help, you can contact me or whatever. But if you're into this, it's I think it's the way forward. I think it's a revolution in the way of we can farm in Ireland, but that's my opinion. But no, look at the videos, and then you'll start to change your mind on how this works really. So basically, all I got at the start was a bug, something to eat, and some minerals and nutrients for your soil, and let them all walk away and spread out in your land. But then you learn more, you get more, and then I did the course, and then that's the final ball. That's when you're laughing really. But it does take 3 years, I'll tell that to everyone.
Yeah, and I think it's really nice to hear you even say that you're not all the way at IMO 5. Do you know what I mean? You're still on the journey. So just start small, start simple, and
I don't. I'd say I don't want to go. I'm not going to IMO 5. The only time I go to IMO 5 if I'm growing vegetables. I don't need to, because all I need is IMO 4, where my soil is mixed with the 1,000 years microbe, that's mingled together, and I spray it back out the land. That's for my way of farming. That's the way, because for the size and whatever. That's basically Bridget. But
yeah, Jonathan Flynn has asked, starting out as a transition, could you drop the artificial nitrogen and switch to FAA applications instead?
That's what I thought. That's what I said. The first input I made in natural farming was FFA. I said, panic. It grows grass. Yeah. Let's do it. I did, and I have stuff there since 18, and that's rocket fuel. Yes, you can, but he's missing the point, is that you need to start the microbe change, because your land is microbial deficiencies. It's barren. I would say it's barren. And once you start bringing in the microbes, yes, go with your FFA. But there's other inputs, like you need structure. Like it's the microbes are the key in farming, in natural farming. Like the 4 steps. Basically, everyone can sit here and tonight and think, like, where is heaven on earth? Go there, scrape back the ground, put down your box, collect the microbes, because the rice will bring them in. the rice is the right product for your microbes, and you get that collection, and you take whatever it's worth. It's worth maybe 100 and whatever 30,000 to me, like that power, and bring it to your farm and start the marriage of the microbes and the inputs, and that's it. That's basically. And FFA, yes, it is a serious input. I don't really use that much of it. I just use it maybe July or August. That's it. But the way you're thinking is conventionally, and okay, there's a lot more inputs like calcium phosphate, humic acid, seawater. That's what I'd start with first. Microbes are number one for me.
Denise Boothman's asked, does your system contain silage? Yeah, it does, because you.
Oh yeah.
And how do you grow it with your nutrients?
Same way, just liquid IMO. It gets about 4 sprays of liquid IMO before I cut, and I don't spray maybe 2.5 weeks before I cut it, and then basically it's fermented grass properly I can't explain it to a conventional farmer, right? It's crazy. The smell, you'd eat it yourself. It's properly fermented in the bag, like it's hay and silage. That's all I feed. I think we're allowed to feed. I don't know. I don't know the rules on the grass certification with IOA, but I think you can feed some beet during this. I don't. Like, the grass is good enough. They're happy. They shine.
Yeah.
They're content. So why bother?
Okay, Talia Huff.
But
sorry.
Yeah. But if you have the money, you can.
Do you seed now, or do you let it become naturalized?
Sorry, that.
Do you reseed your grass? I suppose she's saying, or do you let it? Is it natural regeneration?
I did last year. I rented land across the road, and I did a bit last year. I'm not going to do it anymore, Bridget. I believe that you're breaking the mycelium nectar in the ground, and I think the seed bank is there. I don't care what you grow. If you do natural farming on it, you're growing a more nutritious grass for anything, for the rabbits and the hares. Do you know what I mean? So I think, in my opinion, you're wasting your look. I wouldn't. I'm not doing. I don't think I'll do it anymore. And if I'm going doing it, I'm going to do it like mad stuff, like, say, put grass seed where the cows are walking in and out, let them take it out in their hoofs, or don't touch the ground. That's my opinion. I wouldn't touch the ground.
Ned O'Brien has asked, have you changed how you graze your sward, like 3-week rotations or mob grazing or any of that?
No. I've gone longer. I've gone up to nearly 34 or 5 days. And I graze it as tight as conventional, and then move on. I don't. I think in that, like, you leave, what's it, a third for the sunlight, a third for the biology, and a third for the cows. That's the way it is. But I just graze it down because I know it's going to come back. And I even see by my cows last year, wherever the clover was, like, the big clumps of white clover, I don't know where it came from, but they'd eat it, and they'd shit and piss, and they'd lie down there until they leave the paddock. It's crazy. When you watch it, when you really watch nature, what the animal is actually doing, it knows that's what it needs, and that's what it's feeding, like, No.
So, I mean, you spoke before about your kind of soil. Have you seen nature responding overall, like the rest, other levels of biodiversity responding to this new method of yours?
I have. Nature and animals and wildlife, like, it's hard. I find it awful hard in the way of, there's no habitat anymore, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make a lot more habitat on my farm. And yes, it's not. I've actually hares. There's a few more animals I won't mention. But yeah, it's improved an awful lot. But I think when you're in that cycle and everything is clean, it's what I've seen is I have a lot of fruit trees on my farm, and they were always there. And Lord to rest my dad, he said, like, leave him, Tom, don't go near him, like, But yeah, it's I suppose, to be honest, Bridget, I don't really look at that. I look at what's in my paddocks, and on the hedge lines. I ferment. There's an FFJ. I ferment my fruit ferment juice. Basically, you go at the end of the year with this. So I ferment my crab apples, my sloes, and my my raspberries. So that's a serious, even fermenting them for 5 days, or it makes a serious juice for your kids. Plus that's sprayed back out into the land in October. So the theory is they fall off the trees in October, and what you do, you ferment them and you spray it back in your soil because it's falling down for a reason. This is the way we think. This is the mad shit, I suppose, in a way, right? But that's one of the things. Yeah, and there's so much you can make then, like it's mad. Yeah.
Do you know what? It's really nice that Biofarm was the start of this journey for you, and kind of for a lot of people who don't know Biofarm, they should check it out. It's usually at the first week of November or the second week of November. It's run through NOTS, which is nots.ie, and it's a great source of, like you say, different inspiration and farmers talking and researchers talking and stuff like that.
Sean does a brilliant job.
Sean does a great
job.
Sean
McLean. Yeah, he does. Yeah.
And so it's nice to hear, you sharing your story, Tom, because you are thinking outside the box, and I'm sure it's been a kind of an unusual journey, but it looks like you found your calling as a chemistry teacher, if nothing else, at the back of your couch.
Yeah. I remember asking people that worked in labs for a pH reader for my seawater at the start, and they're going, "What do you want a pH reader for?" But it's crazy. It's when you go down it, that's it. That's your it's mad. But you don't need a pH reader afterwards. That's what I've learned. Yeah.
But you know what? I look forward to hearing more and more how your farm develops and this journey of yours. And thank you for sharing it with us, because you are bringing it to Ireland as such. And also thank you for encouraging Chris Trump to come to Ireland and share his knowledge as well. So that's really key. So that's coming to the end of our evening. You've been a real inspiration, and it's really nice to hear how your farm, I suppose the journey of hearing how unresilient it was in 2018, and hopefully as that goes forward and weather conditions, if they are contrary like they have been, that you will see such good resilience going forward. So we wish you the best, Thomas. Thank you for joining us tonight. For anyone that wishes to miss the start of this or wishes to share this, it will be up on our YouTube channel. So do subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll get any of our future Q&As as well. If you haven't seen Thomas's farm, there's a 5-minute video about Thomas's farm up on our YouTube channel. And hopefully over the summer, we'll have a farm walk on Thomas's farm. So keep an eye out join our newsletters. If you have any questions for any of our farmers, we have an online forum. So do pop up your questions there. And our next session is on the 22nd of February with Henry O'Donnell, which is a Donegal farmer doing upland grazing. Thomas, sorry, you wanted to say something there before we left?
If anyone wants more information, they can get me on knfdairy.com. All right. And that's the way it is. But brilliant, Bridget.
Thanks a million, Thomas. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Bridget.
Yeah, thank you to everyone for joining us. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time for our next one. Okay, take care.
Thank you.